Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. While we're waiting for court to resume in Ohio, we want to take you to Florida, where we're in the penalty phase of the trial of Parkland school shooter Nikolas Cruz. I want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae. Now, she's following this trial closely for us, standing by live to talk about what happened today. Julia, great to see you, and what a moment that was this morning. Take us back, if you would, please.
Julie, this was a shock to everyone involved, except, I guess, the defense team and Nikolas Cruz. Here's how expectant we were about a witness taking the stand for the defense today. Yesterday, at the end of the day, when the Dr. Kenneth Lyon Jones was on the stand, there was a bit of commotion in the gallery. Our cameras wouldn't have seen that, but there was a defense witness who was on standby, who was sitting out in the hallway. He accidentally came in, and officers had to lead him out, make sure he wasn't there for that testimony. We thought he might get called yesterday, but things went late, so we certainly expected that that would be the first witness of the day today. But even when court started, there wasn't an immediate announcement by the defense that they were going to be resting their case. They instead started going through records, putting them into evidence, something we typically see at the end of the resting of both cases, where you want to make sure anything that's been stipulated is read to the jury and then the resting. But the judge had no idea, and take a listen to how that resting even got announced to the court.
Who is your next witness, and when are they being called, and which attorney is going to question them? Let me be clear, if I wasn't before. Because if these don't have anything to do with your next witness, then why are we having the jury wait outside right now?
Just because we were trying to move everything in, because in terms of timing, we do it now.
In terms of timing, it would be much better to do it during the lunch break, when the jury needs longer than you all. So we'll go ahead and pass on this. Let's bring the jury in, please.
Your Honor?
Yes?
At this time, the defense rests, other than putting in our records.
Awkward, abrupt. It was not the way we typically see the resting of a case, and we've even been talking to our own sources about the flow of this case, and that's one thing we could not nail down, is when they were expecting to rest. A couple of weeks ago, I heard that they would be going into September, but yesterday when we were asking those questions, it just seemed that there was not going to be any mention of when they might be resting, and now we know possibly why, Julie.
Oh my gosh, Julia, that was what I'm going, what? Watching this, I'm sure you were too. Your jaw was on the floor, and we always say we call balls and strikes here. You know, we don't have any horse in the race. We're objective, and I mean, that was like, I mean, that was, I mean, talk about a foul ball. I mean, that was the most, like you said, awkward, awful. It just looked so terrible the way they chose to rest like that, almost like they were. It almost seemed like they were hiding something from the judge, and I think she kind of took it that way, because we know attorneys will share, you know, their intentions and the progression of the case with the judge privately. You know that, Julia, and for any viewers wondering, a lot of times you're going to have meetings with the court about how you see the trial progressing, and the jury's not privy to any of that. But then I know she got very upset, did she not, after that ridiculous moment?
You're absolutely right. I'm calling it a scathing scolding from this judge. Like you mentioned, there usually behind the scenes are conversations. Sometimes the media is not privy to it. Even if we ask, we're not told exactly when a certain witness is going to take the stand or when things are going to wrap up. But today at the beginning, even if this was something that happened overnight, you would think they would come in and let the court know that things are going to wrap up today. We don't have any witnesses, and you heard the judge say, I wouldn't have these jurors standing, 22 of them waiting to come in. But take a listen to how she handled it with the defense. And again, this is outside the presence of the jury.
State, are you going to have anything ready for today?
No. We're expecting,
us there was 80 witnesses.
We're waiting for 40 more witnesses.
I just want to say, this is the most uncalled for, unprofessional way to try a case. You all knew about this, and even if you didn't make your decision until this morning, to have 22 people plus all of this staff and every attorney march into court, be waiting as if it's some kind of game, Now I have to send them home. The state's not ready. They're not going to have a witness ready. We have another day wasted. I honestly, I have never experienced a level of unprofessionalism in my career. It's unbelievable.
Well, Judge, you're insulting me on the record in front of my client, and I believe that I should be able to defend
Okay, you
myself.
can do that later. You can make your record later, but you've been insulting me the entire trial. So, blatantly, taking your headphones off, arguing with me, storming out, coming late intentionally if you don't like my rulings. So, quite frankly, this has been long overdue. So please be seated. You can receive the evidence. I will receive the evidence, and then you can put whatever you want on the record at the end.
That is probably the most upset I've seen Judge Scheer in this case. And she's had some moments where things have gotten very tense between both parties. She's really wanted to move things along. Timing is really an issue that she's been trying to protect this jury on. But this is one of those situations where it was completely out of her control, and then having to bring the jury in and let them go home. But Julie, they even told the state, according to prosecutors, that they had 2 witnesses ready today. So that was this morning. So hard to even say when that decision was made.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that just seemed, like I said, a foul ball. I mean, not even in the ballpark. Like, that was very, very, the judge is right. It's very unprofessional to not give your colleagues the courtesy and to say, hey, this is where we are right now, or something has changed, to let the court know. Because at the end of the day, these jurors, their time is what's so valuable. And their time's being wasted standing out there as they're, moving things into evidence, to the judge's point, that could have been done on the lunch break. This is really something. I can't wait to see what happens as this one keeps going here. Julia, curious, you've been watching this closely and reading the tea leaves for us, so to speak. 26 witnesses this defense team called. Any thoughts as to why they rested today, right now, at this point?
Oh, well, Julie, I have an opinion on it. I've been anxious to talk to you about it, to see your thoughts. But this seems to be completely a strategy that they have based on the way things were moving. They started their case way back with the birth mother of this defendant. They've moved through his infancy, his childhood, middle school. But what's noticeably missing is they didn't get into the months surrounding this shooting. So people who would have known him then, perhaps people who knew him early on, for example, Zachary Cruz, his brother, we were expecting him to take the stand. There has been so much conversation about the brother of this defendant, someone who grew up in the home with him, who would have that insight. But he'd also have insight into what was going on right at the time of the shooting. He had been living with his brother. Their mother had passed. He had knowledge about a Kick application, a social media app, where his brother was writing notes to himself where he wanted to shoot up a high school. There were people that he was living with, like the DeChamps, who were not called, who knew about the guns that he owned and wanted to bring them in. So I wonder, Julie, if this was a strategy to keep the prosecution from being able to rebut that part of their case and bring it up in front of this jury. Of course, they've already brought it in during their case in chief, but it seems that they wanted to avoid any of those cross-examination questions, or perhaps the state's rebuttal about what he was thinking in those months right near the shooting and the massacre.
You are so smart, my friend. I love your theory there. I think that is very plausible, that they just thought, we'll stop suddenly, just screeching halt right here and now, leave the state in a pickle. As we saw, the state looked totally unprepared, which also is a problem, too. That's a whole nother discussion, because some judges aren't nearly as courteous as Her Honor, as Judge Scheer, and they will just look to the state, call your witness. You don't have anybody here today? Okay, that's on you, state of Florida, not on this court. And the expectations are very high, and she was very considerate, saying, who do you have? Wow, so that's a really good theory, Julia. Maybe they didn't want to have the state being able to have the last word on what you said about those awful months where he was plotting and planning to carry out this massacre. Nikolas Cruz, want to ask you about him if I can, please. If anybody is just now joining our coverage, he did speak today. You were there for that, Julia. What exactly happened when he was speaking with the judge?
This was a very important part of the day because the state wanted to ensure that Nikolas Cruz understands what's going on. And it's called a colloquy, where the judge will have a series of questions to make sure that he's okay with this strategy. He's okay with all of these witnesses, including his brother, who were not called to the stand during his case. So we heard his voice really for the first time during this trial. Take a listen.
Your lawyers have indicated that you're going to rest your case. That means that they're not going to call any additional witnesses. Have you had the opportunity to discuss this decision with your lawyers?
Yes, I have.
And have you had enough time to consider this decision?
Yes.
Are you comfortable with this decision? Is there any witness that you know of, either listed or not listed, that you feel needs to be called by your lawyer or lawyers that has not already been called?
No, ma'am.
And do you understand, we had a motion about your brother testifying, and his lawyer came, and we had a hearing on it, and based on your decision to rest, your brother's not going to be testifying. Do you understand that? Do you understand at a later time you can't come back and say, hey, my brother was supposed to testify? The courts are going to tell you that you waived that right to have your brother and any other listed or non-listed witness testify in this matter. Do you understand? And do you understand you would have the opportunity to testify if you so chose? Do you understand by resting, you're telling me, Judge, I don't want to testify in this case? And I will instruct the jury that they may not consider that in any way whatsoever, because that's your right under the Constitution. However, I need to make sure that you are comfortable with that decision. Are you comfortable with your decision? Has anyone threatened or coerced you into making that decision?
No, ma'am.
And you've had an ample time to discuss your lawyers, the pros and cons of all of your decisions that you're making here with them today?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel that they've included you in these in the decisions that are specific to your case?
Yes, ma'am.
The purpose of all of that, to make sure on appeal he can't say he didn't know and that he had ineffective assistance of counsel. Julie, this jury is on a break now until the 27th when they'll come back for that state rebuttal case.
Wow, Julia, boy, oh boy, the 27th. State has a lot of time to prepare for the rebuttal, as you know. My goodness, this is really something. Julia Janae live for us in Fort Lauderdale. Thank you so much for all of your reporting on that.